I used to work for a small landscaping company just outside of Austin, Texas. There were only 6 of us. Tight-knit crew, decent pay, long hours in the sun. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. We'd start early, finish dirty, and head to a local bar on Fridays to cool off with a couple beers. One of the guys, Kevin, was the kind of person everyone liked right away. Mid-30s, laid back, always had a Red Bull in hand and a dumb joke ready. He'd blast old-school hip-hop from the company truck and keep everyone's mood light when the heat made the rest of us grouchy. We used to give him crap for how bad he was at texting back, but he was dependable, showed up on time, never complained. Always a guy to lend you a glove or run back for a tool without making a fuss. Then one Friday in early June, he didn't show up. No call, no text. The foreman tried reaching him, then his wife. Nothing. She said she thought he left for work like usual that morning. His truck was gone. Keys usually on the hook were missing, but he never made it to the job site. At first we figured something minor, maybe car trouble, or he got sick and forgot to check in. It was weird, but Kevin didn't strike us as the kind of guy to just disappear. Still, we shrugged it off and covered for him that day. But the weekend passed with no word. Monday came. Still nothing. That's when people started getting worried. By Tuesday, his wife filed a missing persons report. The police took it seriously. They put out a notice and started canvassing the area. That afternoon, they found Kevin's truck. It was abandoned on a dirt access road about 20 miles outside of town, near Bastrop State Park. Doors locked. Key still inside. No sign of a struggle. No damage. It looked like someone had just pulled over and vanished. No tracks. No blood. No phone. Nothing. If you like these kinds of creepy, real-life stories, go ahead and like the video and hit subscribe. I post new horror stories like this every week. We didn't hear anything for over a week. Just silence. Then, 10 days after he vanished, Kevin came back. He walked into the office like nothing had happened. Same jeans, same dirty work boots. He looked a little thinner, and his skin was red and blistered, like he'd been in the sun way too long. But otherwise fine. No cuts, no limp, no panic. Just walked in and grabbed a water bottle from the fridge like it was a normal Tuesday. When the boss asked where he'd been, Kevin just said, "Got turned around." That's it, got turned around. He wouldn't say where or how. Not to the police, not to his wife, not to anyone. Just kept saying he was fine and that he needed a few days to clear his head. Everyone tried pressing him for details. What he ate, where he slept, how he survived, but he'd just shrug and say, "It's all kind of a blur." But here's the thing. Kevin didn't come back the same. He looked like Kevin, sounded like him, but the way he moved, the way he spoke, it felt off, detached, like he was going through the motions. He stopped laughing at jokes, barely made eye contact. He'd zone out in the middle of conversations and then act like nothing had happened. One time, the foreman called her by name 3 times before he snapped out of it and looked up like he'd been somewhere else entirely. He forgot things, small things at first. Names, what town he lived in. Once, he tried clocking and using someone else's time card. At first we thought he was just rattled, maybe PTSD or dehydration or something, but then it started getting weirder. He had this habit. He'd stop what he was doing and stare off into the distance, like out toward the woods, or at the tree line along the edge of a property. Not like he was distracted, like he was listening, focused, alert. Sometimes he'd mutter something, barely audible. Once I asked him what he was looking at. He didn't blink, just said, waiting to hear it again. I didn't ask what it was. I didn't want to know. A few days later, we were planting shrubs in a backyard when Kevin suddenly dropped his shovel and walked to the far edge of the yard, near the fence. He stood there for a long time, head slightly tilted. When I walked over, I asked if he was okay. He looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You can't hear it, can you?" Then he just turned and walked back to the truck without another word. 2 weeks after he came back, he quit. No warning. Just a short text to the boss. "I won't be coming in anymore." His wife came by the office a few days later to return some tools he'd left behind. She looked tired. hollowed out like she hadn't slept in days. She thanked us for trying to reach him while he was gone, then hesitated. I asked how he was doing. She said Kevin barely spoke anymore, that he spent hours sitting on the back porch at night, just staring out at the trees. He didn't watch TV, didn't eat much, barely slept, said the bed made him feel too exposed. So now, he slept on the floor, sometimes with his boots on. If you've ever had someone in your life vanish and come back acting different, drop a comment below. Your story could be featured in a future episode. She told me the strangest thing he said. One night he whispered, "They didn't mean to let me go." And when she asked who, he just shook his head and walked away. Last I heard, they moved out of state. Somewhere in Montana, I think. She said she couldn't take it anymore. The way he stared at her like a stranger. The way he'd flinch at certain sounds. Like birds or wind chimes. She said he wasn't the man she married anymore. The cops eventually closed the case. No evidence of foul play. No reason to keep it open. Officially, they chalked it up as a voluntary disappearance. Unexplained, but not illegal. Case closed. But for the rest of us, for the guys who work next to Kevin every day, we know something happened out there in those woods. Something we'll probably never understand. Because Kevin might have walked back into that office, but he didn't come back. I worked one summer as part of a retreat staff in rural Pennsylvania. It was one of those old-school nature retreats, wooden cabins, a cold lake, trails winding through thick woods, and no self-service once you got past the gravel parking lot. The kind of place where time slows down, and the quiet makes you feel like something's always watching from the trees. Most of the attendees were in their 30s and 40s. People looking to unplug for a week, hike, kayak, journal. We had a full week of prep before anyone arrived. How to handle medical emergencies, de-escalate arguments, basic CPR, wilderness safety. You got used to awkward silences and emotional breakthroughs by day 3. Nothing too strange ever really happened. Until that summer, there was one woman named Elena in my cabin group. She was maybe mid-30s. Quiet, polite, kept to herself. The kind of person who listened more than she talked. She wore the same faded pink hoodie every day, even when the sun was baking the valley floor. At first, I figured it was a comfort thing. Everyone's got some emotional armor, but she never took it off. Not during yoga, not during meals, not even at the lake. I saw her get drenched one day during a sudden rainstorm, and she still kept it on. When I asked her about it, she just smiled and said, "It keeps me grounded." She wasn't exactly unfriendly, just withdrawn. She'd smile and nod politely, but mostly kept to herself. Still, she joined the activities. She carved a small wooden fox in the crafting tent one afternoon and seemed oddly focused while doing it. Like the rest of the world disappeared around her. She'd sit at the edge of the group during meditation, eyes closed, hoodie strings pulled tight. The weird stuff started on a Wednesday afternoon. It was open activity time. Some people were swimming, others hiking or journaling by the water. I was on shift by the lake with 2 other staff when we noticed Elena wasn't around. At first, we assumed she'd gone back to the cabin or was walking one of the shorter trails alone. But after 20 minutes, she still hadn't turned up. We checked the cabin, the meditation yurt, the kitchen. Nothing. Soon, everyone available was helping look. No one had seen her. The entire property went into lockdown. We scoured the trails, shouting her name. Someone radioed the ranger station, and by nightfall, they had volunteers combing the area. Flashlights and walkie-talkies, bullhorns echoing through the trees. That forest gets dark fast. The kind of dark where even the bugs go quiet. That night, we barely slept. The temperature dropped, and fog moved in. The staff rotated shifts, listening for any sound. Branches breaking, footsteps, anything. But the woods were silent. The next morning, her emergency contact arrived. A sister, I think, when she showed up and heard Elena was missing. She let out this choked sob that I still hear in my head sometimes. That raw, animal sound grief makes when it's just beginning. Elena was missing for nearly 36 hours. Then, late the next afternoon, A maintenance guy spotted her walking down the main trail from the forest like nothing had happened, covered in dirt, leaves in her hair, hoodie streaked with mud, but calm. Too calm. Not relieved, not scared. Just distant. She didn't explain where she'd been. Just said, in the woods. She didn't mention animals, or other people, or being lost. Just those 3 words. Her eyes were clear but empty. She had no injuries, wasn't dehydrated, and didn't resist any of the checks we did, but she barely spoke after that. The director recommended she leave, but her sister asked if she could stay until the end of the retreat, just quietly under observation. She stayed mostly in her cabin the rest of the week. She ate only when prompted, spoke almost not at all, and kept that hoodie on the whole time. Hood up, drawn tight even when she slept. If you're still watching, hit that like button. These stories are real, and sometimes the things left unsaid are the most terrifying. One of the other guests swore they saw her standing by the cabin window one night, just watching the woods for hours. We all felt it, even if no one said it out loud. Something was wrong with her, not in a medical way, not in a diagnosable way, but spiritually, like she came back wrong. On the final night of the retreat, we held a closing circle around the fire pit. Music, reflections, marshmallows. Elena actually showed up, sat near the edge, staring into the flames. She even smiled once, faintly. Someone passed her a marshmallow, and she held it in her lap like it was made of glass. Later that night, I went back to grab a forgotten backpack. That's when I saw her, Elena, standing alone by the edge of the woods. She wasn't looking at me, just staring into the trees. I called her name. She didn't turn around, just said, "They're still in there." I stopped. "Who's in there, Elena?" She didn't answer, just stood there, still as a statue. Then she murmured, "I told them I'd come back." She turned and walked slowly back to camp. The next morning, she and her sister left. No goodbyes, just silence. After the retreat, life moved on. Most people forgot, but I couldn't shake that last night. Her voice, the stillness, the way she stood at the edge of the woods like she was waiting for something, or someone. Nearly a year later, I got a message from another retreat worker. He asked if I remembered Elena. Of course I did. He said someone he knew stayed in touch with Elena's sister, and things had gotten worse. They'd moved to a new town, and Elena had started sleepwalking. Every night, her sister would find her standing at a window, always the same one, facing the woods at the back of their property, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours, never speaking. She never remembered doing it, and she still wore that hoodie, every day, even in summer. They tried therapy. Nothing. She wouldn't talk, wouldn't journal, just sat silent. On bad days, she'd whisper to herself, softly, words her sister couldn't understand, rhythmic, almost like prayer or a chant. One night, her sister found her barefoot in the backyard, standing just before the tree line. When she asked what Elena was doing, she said, "They're waiting. Subscribe if you haven't already." These cases may sound unbelievable, but talk to anyone who's worked in secluded places long enough. Truth is always stranger than fiction. No one knows what happened during those 36 hours Elena was missing. They searched every inch of that forest. No structures, no sign of anyone else. But something happened out there, and whatever it was, it came back with her. Because that woman who stepped out of the woods, she wasn't the same woman who went in. This happened about 6 years ago, the summer after I graduated high school. My older brother Josh and I had always been close. He was 2 years older than me, and growing up in a small town near the Adirondacks meant we spent a lot of time outdoors, fishing, hiking, camping, just being out in the woods. It was the kind of town where people still left their doors unlocked and waved to each other when they passed on the road. Quiet, safe, or at least it used to feel that way. That summer, Josh got really into solo hiking, said it helped him clear his head. He was kind of going through it. Nothing dramatic, just that weird, restless feeling some people get in their early 20s when they're not sure what comes next. One weekend in July, he planned an overnight hike out near Moose River Plains, a remote stretch of wilderness with backcountry trails and primitive campsites. We knew the area pretty well. We camped there as a family when we were younger, but this time he was going alone. He packed light but smart: tent, food, water filter, gear, and one of those satellite SOS devices. My mom made him promise to check in Sunday night when he got home. He left Friday afternoon, but Sunday night came and nothing. We tried not to panic. He was independent. Maybe he decided to extend the trip, but it wasn't like him to not check in, especially knowing how our mom worried. By Monday morning, we called the Rangers. A full search started that afternoon. Helicopters, K-9 units, volunteers. They found his campsite, tent still standing, gear mostly untouched. His backpack was there, but his boots were gone, which suggested he might have gone off trail. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no animal tracks, nothing. It was like he just stood up and vanished. If real stories like this disturb you, hit that like button and subscribe. I've got more coming just like it. Then, on Wednesday night, for days after he left, he came home. I was sitting in the living room with my mom when we heard the gravel crunch in the driveway. She looked out the window and screamed. I ran to the front door and saw him walking toward the house, barefoot, covered in dirt. His clothes were torn and stained. His face was blank, expressionless, like he was in some kind of trance. My dad met him on the porch and tried talking to him, but Josh just brushed past him and walked straight into the house. He sat on the couch and stared at the blank TV like it was playing something only he could see. We called 911. The paramedics arrived and checked him out. He was dehydrated, malnourished, scraped up, but no serious injuries. No signs of exposure. The ER ran a full panel. No drugs, no head trauma. Nothing out of the ordinary. But he wouldn't talk. Not to us, not to the doctors. For almost 48 hours, he just sat in silence. When he did start speaking again, something was off. It was like he was only half there. His voice was slower, duller. He used fewer words. And there was a flatness to him, like the real Josh had been turned down or smudged out. He wouldn't eat unless someone physically put food in front of him and walked away. He wouldn't sleep unless every light was off. He stopped using mirrors, ripped the one off his bedroom wall, wouldn't let us hang one in the bathroom. He wouldn't explain why. And one night, about a week after he came back, I found him standing in the backyard at 3 a.m., barefoot again, staring up at the woods behind our house. I asked him what he was looking at. He didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, "They almost let me go. I don't think they meant to." I asked who he meant, but he just walked past me and went back inside like nothing happened. After that night, he started writing in this small black notebook, obsessively, dozens of pages filled with strange symbols, diagrams, and what looked like crude maps. At first, I thought he was just trying to work through the trauma, maybe some kind of PTSD. But when I looked closer, the symbols didn't look random. They were intricate, repetitive, ritualistic, almost. The maps were even stranger. They weren't of any trails or places I recognized. They showed trees arranged in patterns, spirals that led to these root-like doorways underground. Some had tunnels branching out and ending in nothing. Others led to black circles, or just question marks. The last page of the notebook just said, in big, blocky letters, "They don't forget." After a few months, Josh moved out. He said he needed to be somewhere less loud, whatever that meant. He didn't say goodbye, just left one day and never came back. He lives out of state now. I don't know where. He never gave us an address. But every few months I get a postcard. No return address. Just short, cryptic messages, handwritten in block letters. Stay away from the old trails. Don't follow the lights. They listen when it's quiet. My parents tried to get him to come home for holidays. He never did. Eventually, they stopped asking. Every now and then I dream about him, or at least about the version of him that came back that night. And sometimes when I'm driving to the woods alone, I think I see something in the trees, just for a second. Something too tall, too still, watching. I'll never know where my brother really was for those missing 4 days. But one thing I know for sure, he didn't come back alone. And maybe not all of him came back at all. If you're still listening, thanks for sticking with me. If you want more true stories like this, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You never know what's out there.